think.
I do. I look.
You've got
Well-
fuzz on you. How can you be? You know what? I didn't do this last week. Our tradition.
What didn't you
Are
do?
my fingers cold?
No, your fingers are actually not cold. My feet are cold. So tonight, be weary.
Yeah.
Folks, we're live. This is Wally
and Nanette
with Supreme Gecko. Oh my gosh, do we have a show tonight? We have a guest that I swear, I'm going to say
Don't
something
swear.
like
You're not supposed to swear.
the word gecko, and we'll be 14 hours later talking with no script.
No.
Even though I have a script here, we're not. I bet you I never go back to it. Seriously. So who's here, Nanette?
Let's see. I see Angie's here, Shane's here, Frank's here. Marine Corps Reptiles is here. Let me see if I can scroll up a little bit here. It's like I've never used a mouse before. Moon's here. Sorry. JP Lizards is here. That's who I'm seeing so far. Stars and Reds Reptiles.
Wow.
Laura's here. Bitten by Geckos is here.
I feel like
Sandra's here.
I feel like we're playing poker. This is a full house. Folks, we have a lot to talk about before we bring on Anthony Uzar, and we're going to have a lively chat tonight. I guarantee it.
We almost didn't get on the live tonight because you two got wrapped up.
We were gone.
I actually turned my timer on so that it would go off.
We were talking movies and songs of the 80s. And happy. I do have to read some of this off because I don't want to lose some of this because it's so important. We've got a lot going on at Supreme Gecko. Now I sound serious, don't I? Happy
nobody
early
takes
Valentine. No, nobody takes me serious. So I could talk in my best Morgan Freeman voice and nobody would take me serious.
Keep moving. Neil.
Happy early Valentine's Day. Jump in.
I did, Neil. Happy early Valentine's Day. What?
Neil.
I was reading the names.
Oh. Okay, we have Anthony Uzar from Cold Blooded Gems. I have to read that because I almost say another company name, so I apologize, and I'll probably do that sometime during the show. The Gecko Exchange podcast, New Cal Corner podcast, video, YouTube videos. Oh my gosh, he has his hands in so much stuff. Did anybody raise your hands? Did anybody see the video that came out yesterday about moving the Odura, the velvet geckos? So I'll make this really quick, but I started the week with thinking of 2 or 3 different videos that I wanted to do, and literally woke up Tuesday and said, I've got to move the Oduras because I've got to get them ready for breeding season.
You just I need to move.
I did. I literally did exactly that. So
and I missed it.
I put the camera up and started moving and filmed it. I rarely do that. Everything that I do is so, horribly rehearsed and scripted and spreadsheets, and it's horrible. So I just turned the camera on and started recording, and hopefully it turned out okay, but hopefully it wasn't just, he's moving some animals. Hopefully you saw a little bit of the behind the scenes and some of the things that we're doing here at Supreme Gecko. If you watch the video, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, comment, blah, blah, blah.
Is that the one where you squirt water everywhere?
I did. So we have hoses hooked up to two different faucets for misting animals. And I pulled one out and I had adjusted the nozzle to a different setting. I think it was from jet to mist because I wanted to mist because there was peat all over the place. And Anthony, I tell you, I still have peat in my sinuses from doing that. So, I'm adjusting, and all of a sudden the whole misting goes off like wildly in the room. So it was embarrassing. Yeah, you did miss that part.
Jordan did tell me some of the fun stuff you guys had going on when you were taping, but I won't go there.
We almost burned the house down. Okay, buy me a coffee. We added 2 new videos this week. I've been busy. The first video was here's the benefits of our Buy Me a Coffee program. And I tried to keep it as short as I possibly could. I think we were still like 3 minutes. If I missed anything, Buy Me a Coffee members, if I missed any, and supporters, if I missed something, let me know, because I thought I covered everything, but I just have that dreadful feeling I missed something. I also did a video on a tool that I'm using for social media that's now saving probably 3 or 4 hours a week and helping me be more consistent in posting. It's such a drag to, I haven't posted in 2 days. Now I don't want to post. And you just have to get out of that. Well, this tool helps me set up and schedule. Oh my gosh, what a blessing it's been to us. So if you're a Buy Me a Coffee member, I think it was just to elites for the elite benefit. Huge tool for me, at least.
I just got an alert that we have a live tonight.
Maybe we should start it. Did we hit the go live?
I don't know. Did you?
I don't know. Buy Me a Coffee members. Tomorrow's a big giveaway. I almost said the big giveaway, but it's big giveaway. That's tomorrow.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah. So we'll be giving away, I don't even know what we're giving away. I'm usually better at this and listing out the animals and gift certificates.
It's a surprise.
Join. I know it's Valentine's Day. Dan, who reminded me. Join in if you can. If you can't, if you're taking your loved one to a restaurant, enjoy your evening. It's so cool. But we're going to have a lot of giveaways. You don't have to be present for the main giveaways. We'll have a couple of live giveaways during the event as well. And this is our monthly Buy Me a Coffee Live, and we're going to have a lot of announcements in there as well. We'll have some fun too.
Oh.
What do you have going? Tell me about Palm Street. What's going on with Palm Street? And we're going to try to get to Anthony just as quick as we can.
Palm Street, we're doing our first live next Friday night. It's kind of interesting. I'm kind of intrigued with this one, and I've kind of gotten more involved in this because it's interesting a little bit.
We'll have crested geckos. We'll have gargoyle geckos. We might have some rare geckos. We're going to have packages. We'll have supplies.
Giveaway.
That's a week from Friday, the 21st, right?
Yep, the 21st. What
Cool.
time do we set it up at?
I don't remember. I think 7:00.
Okay.
Right now, you could go over to Palm Street. And if you don't know what Palm Street is, it's an auction app. It's pretty cool. It seems fairly easy to use. Go over to Palm Street, and follow Supreme Gecko, Wally Supreme Gecko, and then hit the notify for that live that we're doing. Goals. Only 1 or 2 more things here in the net. Goals.
Don't tell me. Tell the poor guy that got in the back of the stage that's hanging out.
I promised at the beginning of the year to do some videos on goals because people have asked so much, and I'm not trying to boast here, but I've gotten this so much. You get so many different things going here at Supreme Gecko. How do you keep up? Well, it's all in my goal setting process. And I've been asked to document that and help some people out with goals. And we've had consultations with individuals, but I wanted to put a series together and present that to our Buy Me a Coffee members. So mentioned that in January. I have a rough outline. I have to fill in the blanks with a script. Then I'll start the recording, editing, and then publishing. I don't think I'll probably have that done until March. Wait, don't people do goals as a New Year's resolution? Yeah, but these goals are different. This isn't a New Year's resolution. This is kind of a life-changing habit thing that hopefully will help people get their goals done better and easier and faster and stronger. Isn't that a song? All right, I'm done blabbing. Palm Street is February 21st.
At 7:30.
At 7:30. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, we have a guest.
So normally, we've been in this hobby for over 20 years. Normally, I start the conversation with, I've known Jim for 20 some years, and he's the best friend. And I've known Anthony like a year, and he feels like
only a year.
It's been about a year, wow. I think. It feels like it's been 20. Not a bad 20. Did I say that right? I said that completely wrong. It feels like we're like best friends. So, and it's not on me, it's on Anthony because he's just so easy to talk to. I'm bringing him on. Okay, we have 2 minutes left in the show, Anthony. Sorry about that. I used all of our time.
He said he was going to take a couple comments really quick.
Well, God bless him. Go ahead. Man, he's changing the world over here. I
10 minutes
in. That's awesome.
How
Good
are
to
you?
be here.
Good,
Glad to
good.
be here. Privileged to be here.
Oh.
Thank you guys again and again and again. I mean, if you would have asked me 6, 7 years ago when I started watching your videos, I'd ever be sitting on a computer talking to you about geckos, I never would have believed you. Let's just say that.
My hat just got a lot smaller. I don't know why. I don't. We don't deserve that. Nanette does. I
You
don't deserve
do.
that.
You do. You're just a very modest, humble person, but you do. It's hard to especially for a new person to get into geckos or do anything to geckos, learn about geckos, and not have learned something from Supreme Geckos. That's just a fact. You know, it's what's up, Frank?
All I'm doing is doing exactly what you're doing, trying to be positive, share the passion, share some information. And you
should all be
guys,
doing. You know,
I'll
we
give
should
you a
all be
lot of credit, and I'll give Jason Morrow a lot of credit for coming out with this and going all in with your both of your podcasts. Great job. Great job.
So
Before we get started, if their questions come up, I will star them. If they're relevant to what we're talking about at that time, I will put them up on the screen. But otherwise, you don't have to try to keep up with the chat.
okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
We're going to get into geckos deep here in this show, but before we do, one thing that is kind of a religious thing for me is I think a lot of podcasts start off with getting right into, so what are you keeping? And I want to know about you, and I kind of do know a little bit about you, and but I don't think the viewers know about Anthony. Tell us a little bit about Anthony outside of the hobby, if you wouldn't mind.
It's a hard one. I'm a carpenter. I'm a carpenter by trade. You know, I build things for a living. I mean, if you can dream it up, a customer can dream it up, I can build it. I've been doing that my whole life, you know, catching reptiles and building things. It's what I do. It's who I am. I have a dog. My dog is like my best friend, my kid, my world. You know, I spend a lot of time in the woods with my dog. I mean, those are really my passions, you know, the outdoors. I fish a lot. I work on offshore fishing boats, you know, pelagic species. Yeah, anything that really involves outdoors. I hate to sound so simple, but if it has to do with the outdoors, I probably do it. I mountain bike a lot. I hike a lot with the dog, obviously. I drive a Jeep. I love my country. I love our veterans. I love our police. I'm a history buff. I love history. I love 1960s music. I love doo-wop. I love 20s, 30s music. I like happiness. I like to like things. You know, I don't like to dislike things in life. So I try to find the joy and pleasure in just about everything. You know, I believe life is 99% perception, right? Like,
Yep.
And I'm married. I have a wife. Been married for about 6 years now. She'd kill me if I didn't have the exact numbers. So, we got married on a beach. You know, she knows how much I love the water. You know, I'm a New England boy. You know, the water is in my soul. I don't know. What would I say about me? I'm curious. I wonder what people would say about me at my funeral. What would they say?
I would think that they would say you're about as positive as any person in the hobby. And like we were talking about before the show, everybody has their bad days. We have our bad days. I don't think Nanette's ever had a bad day. I've certainly had bad days. About once a week, I'll have a bad day.
You do.
But you are about as positive as anybody. Angie has a question.
Beg to differ, but listen, I always start out positive. Let's just say that. I always am willing to continue with the positiveness, if that means anything.
Yes, that means everything. That means everything.
I always tell people things, you know, when people want to start debating stuff. And I will get to the question 1 second. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
People will always, I I say, people, what distinguishes us and separates us from our primate cousins is not our opposable thumbs, yet our ability to communicate, right? Like the world's problems can be solved with a conversation, right? They don't need to be fought on a battlefield. Two men don't need to square off and puff chests out, right? Like if you could simply communicate and at worst case, agree to disagree, then I mean the world would just be a lot better of a place, right? Like we don't have to get so caught up in the the emotion of anger, right? Like when we let this feeling, and it's nothing more than a feeling, right? Our bodies feel lots of things. You let this feeling overpower your brain, and nothing gets solved. It's I could go on for hours about that too, but I just assume always choose positive. I just assume always look for the brighter side of the picture.
I've got to think that you're a lot like me in that it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get me really amped up and
Yes.
really, gloves are down. Let's go. Penalty
Some very
box.
specific things. I don't like bullies. I don't like, not that this matters, but I don't like people victimizing children or women. There's certain things as a man that I can't. I can't. But other than that, yeah. I mean, I love different people. If someone says someone's weird, I want to talk to you. I like weird, right? I don't like when everyone's the same thing. Be unique. I encourage everybody to be yourself. Be yourself. Who cares what the next person thinks, right? Be you. Do what makes your soul shine. You got to live this life for you. When it's over, there's no rewind button. I promise you that. I've never been there, but I can. I'm pretty sure, right? Like there's no rewind button. There's no redo button. We gotta, as a society, stop learning to live for other people. Fancy things that we think impress other people. Do what makes you happy, right? If those things make you happy, then God bless. Put 24-inch rims on your Cadillac Escalade. Have a ball. I could care less. As long as it makes you happy.
I'm going to do the gold teeth. That's going to make me happy. The gold teeth, big chains.
You got a wife to deal with, not me.
Angie is asking,
Wow.
Do you do any herping?
My life is one big herping trip. Anywhere I go, everything I do. There's never been a dirt path I've walked down and haven't had a stone I haven't flipped. I herp everywhere. I found every reptile in the state of Connecticut. I live in a very little state, but I found everything here. Everywhere I go, it's funny people, you ask, because see, this is like a complex topic here. But lots of people grow up to love this hobby, right? Like people grow up and like, oh, wow, there's a world of reptiles. Wow, people go herping. And God bless those people that do. But as a child, that's what we had to do, right? Like there was no go watch TV, go play video games, go outside and go catch something, go do something, get out of here, go get dirty. We would go outside and we would literally flip every stone in our yard. We would know what was under every stone. Every time we would go somewhere, we'd be running off looking for rivers, creeks, ponds, forest stones. Like that's what we did. Is when we went somewhere, we wanted to know what lived here, what animals lived wherever we went on vacation. We went to the Grand Canyon as kids. Like anywhere we would go, we would be instantly obsessed and infatuated with whatever we could find, or totally curious about what lived in whatever area we were at, if that makes any sense. Kind of a tongue twister, but
it makes all the sense in the world. Some of my best memories are Folgers coffee cans with 12 tadpoles in them that I collected down at the little wading stream down a block away from the house. Yeah, 100%.
They don't teach
all
in
the sense in the
school.
world. Yep.
Lessons, unfortunately, they don't teach in maybe some classrooms, but it's nature, man. I could go on. We can have a whole podcast on nature alone. This world, this planet, the natural world is the most incredible, complex organism that we are part of it. So if you think that any living organism is complex, we are just a small piece of the bigger picture, right? And it's amazing, some of these things that the world does, then if you just paid attention, right? If you paid attention to the natural world instead of the technology world or the social world, you'd be surprised what you learned. You know, nature won't necessarily talk to you. You know, you will have to decipher. You know, it's an acquired language, but you'll
And
learn.
I have a question on that later that I'm going to bring up to you. That's going to be, I think, a fun exercise. Angry is asking, where are you based out of?
New England.
Very cool.
Connecticut, New York area. Now that lower, no Massachusetts or Maine or anything, but New England.
Frank the Tank is saying, love the energy,
You know it, Frank.
positiveness and energy, and open-mindedness too. I'd like to throw that one in too.
Gotta be.
You said that
digging?
yeah,
I'm
I hear them
sorry.
digging. We have some
Wow.
a shield-tailed guy that
Mama,
sitting behind us, and they're just tearing up the
Digging
tank right
back
now.
there.
that's cool.
Sorry
I have
about that.
flying gnats all around this room because I insist on keeping it 75 degrees. Just had one go up my damn nose.
75 degrees. I think it's
Yeah.
5 degrees
It
here.
was negative earlier.
Crazy.
He's in
Oh,
his
it is
room.
outside for sure.
He's in
I
his
just
room.
insist
That's
on
for
paying a
fact.
$300 a month gas bill.
Yeah.
You mentioned, some of the things that you did as a kid. Was it something as a kid that brought you into reptiles, or that natural fascination with animals?
I was
What do you
born
think?
into it. I was born into it. My father kept Burmese pythons in the 80s. My father had big snakes, Burmeses, reticulated pythons. I mean, as a child, I grew up with a 55-gallon tank as a coffee table with a dwarf caiman in it. So, I mean, these are things that I grew up with, My father had, they believe they were diamondback rattlesnakes. And I don't keep, nor have I ever kept anything hot, any poisonous species. But yeah, my father had western diamondback rattlesnakes as a kid.
Wow.
Eastern indigos.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I can still remember being in diapers, old enough where I wasn't exactly potty trained, I guess, but old enough that I can, comprehend and remember. But I probably had my first, obviously I wasn't caring for it, but, my snake, before I could probably talk, which is also ironic because I'm named Anthony. And my name Anthony I come from a Roman Catholic family. I was named after Saint Anthony. Saint Anthony is ironically the keeper and protector of all of the animals.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's I don't want to get biblical or crazy or anything, but it's quite literally in my soul. Animals are in my soul. I've kept horses, goats, everything you can imagine, Funny story, when we were kids, real quick.
Yeah, no.
Around me out, and we used to live in Westchester County, New York, Mount Vernon area. Some people know where that is, But in the meat markets, you could buy around Easter time. You could buy baby chickens, baby geese, little baby ducks, little fowl, right? So one year, my father takes us, and I have 3 younger brothers. So he takes us, and we could pick whatever we want: a baby chicken, a baby duck, a baby goose, whatever. So me and all my brothers picked out these animals. 3 of us out of the 4 wind up getting, I'm the oldest, wind up getting these geese. I don't know what the hell they were, but they wind up being these cool black and white geese. So a year passes, and my dad goes, "Hey, dinner. We raised them. We're eating them."
Bro.
So my dad's like this super strange, eccentric type of person, if you will. So he has this crazy, handmade sterling silver Saudi Arabian sword that they're going to decapitate the geese's head off of and go cook the geese and eat the geese. Eat the geese, was all the point to raise them was eat them. I freaked out, Wally. I went crazy. I said, "You're not killing my goose. You're not killing my goose." I took the goose. They made him drive me after a long day of throwing a fit. Made him take me to local little river near the house, and I let my goose go.
Oh my gosh.
But and I eat meat. There's no ands or buts about it. I eat meat. I hunt. I fish. But I'm not going to eat something I raised and build a bond with. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I understand life and death and food, and I get it all. But it's just not going to happen.
I can understand that 100%.
And I was probably at that time 7 years old. So that's how long ago this,
funny thing is that our family raised ducks and geese as well when I was about the same age. And I remember the stump. We don't want to get into that. Don't want to get into that.
Don't even go
No,
there.
no. Let's move on. So childhood, kind of the interest is building. About when did you really kind of make that leap into keeping exotic pets, such as leopard geckos, whatever you were keeping, whatever kind of reptile you were keeping first?
You're gonna
other than the snake.
This is absurd. Well, it's hard to peg too again, because when I was a kid, we have this thing called spring cleanup, right? Where everybody takes their junk and they put it on the sidewalks, right? So me and my buddy Jeff would ride our bikes around with a wagon. We'd pull a wagon and we'd pick up every fish tank, every cage, everything that someone was throwing out that we could keep. Yep. And we'd take them home and we'd somehow manage, or we'd come up with the plan on what type of animal we were going to put in this cage. So we'd go through, at the time there was no internet, obviously. So if we didn't have an animal yet to go into it, we would look through magazines and books and, from TV, and we try to make a cage. We would build a little enclosure that looked like some sort of natural environment, and then we'd set our goals on getting a specific animal. And that was middle school, So I had my first, this is strange, this is a funny one. I had a Savannah monitor in middle school. I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. I had a Savannah monitor. Had him for about 2 weeks. That friend of mine, Jeff, that I was talking about, that collected the cages with me, wanted him really, really bad. And he had some type of animal he wanted to trade me. So I wound up trading him the Savannah monitor for something like a hedgehog, right? Something different. And my grandmother asked, well, what happened to your lizard? And I told her I traded him, blah, 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 blah. And right next to her house is the iconic White Plains Reptile show.
Oh my.
And to make a long story short and a short story shorter, I got my grandmother to buy me a black throat monitor in 6th or 7th grade. Oh. I had that monitor for about 11 or 12 years, Dracor. Yeah, black throat monitor. Wow. He didn't die. I wanted to get rid of him because I was moving, going to school, doing a bunch of young kid stuff, and just didn't have the time. So I wound up giving him away. But all through those years, my first snake was an Argentine. I don't even know if they're still called the same, because I'm married and my wife is not having snakes. So not happening. She said, you can have whatever you want. Don't bring a snake in his house, because she'll be on the sidewalk with you. So I just never tried her, because I know she's that serious. So I'm really, in my heart, I'm a big snake, big lizard guy. But she's not having it. So I just got to respect her wishes. But I got my first Argentinian boa. Around the same time as the monitor. I was probably 10 years oldish. A good friend of my father, Sean Foster, bred red-tailed boas. He was breeding red-tailed boas, and like all this, the Bob Clark era. Like, he was hip with them dudes. These guys were all in the same circle. His name is Sean Foster. One of my father's good friends. Is my uncle's best man at his wedding. But a friend of Bob Clark. So these guys all had these big snakes, and I would always go to his house. And he's also Italian. It's a weird thing, but a lot of Italians raise and eat certain animals like rabbits and pigeons and race pigeons, but they have things. So Sean had a lot of rabbits, and he had a lot of big snakes. And I would always go over and ask questions, because that's how I learn. I ask questions. I'm not ashamed, never have been, to ask questions. Not stupid enough to believe everything I hear, but I at least ask. So I'd always ask these questions, and strangely enough, one day, him and my uncle were together, and Sean was like, we're going to stop by the Life Galleries, this place in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This place used to have sharks and tanks, black tip reef sharks. They had some lemon sharks, like cool aquarium, cool place. But they also sold reptiles in the back. He wanted to buy me my first Argentinian boa, red-tailed boa. Again, I'm so out of the snake world that I know there's better terminology for them these days, but when my times, animals were called different things. So I wound up getting that guy, and I had him around my neck one day, and I was carrying him down the stairs, and he tagged me.
Oh.
I freaked out and I grabbed him and I pulled him and I had teeth stuck in my mouth.
no.
So it didn't kill him. It didn't hurt him or anything. But at that time, we had this thing called the Bargain News. I don't know if they still have it. The Bargain News. It's like a classified thing, like classified paper, like an actual newspaper. And it had a pet section. So I listed him in there and sold him. And I went to the White Plains show again at 12 years old. And I bought my first retic. Bought a reticulated python. This reticulated python has an amazing story. I bought this reticulated python. I raised him till he was about 8-9 feet long. He got too big. Like he was, big enough to eat my dog. And he wasn't one of these small island locales that they have now. He was a retic, like what everybody thinks of a retic, like hot. He was a monster. So my grandmother was like, Anthony, there's kids in this house. I was living with my grandmother at the time. Get rid of that damn snake. So a good friend of mine, Carl Higbee, he's actually a news anchor right now for his news station called Newsmax. His name is Carl Higbee. He's an actual like a news anchor. You see him on the news. He's on TV. Ironically enough, he also worked for Donald Trump in the first administration. He was a security, something of security, ex-Navy SEAL. Dude's the man. So I gave Carl the snake. Carl wound up getting deployed and going off to the Middle East. He brings the snake to the Bronx Zoo. To this day, my reticulated python is still in the Bronx Zoo.
Oh my God.
Right hand to God. That was my snake. Yep. And if you know anything about zoos, you'll know that zoos don't take animals. You cannot just bring an animal to the zoo.
No.
So, but Carl being Carl got the animal in there. And it's just a beautiful, bittersweet story. I've been down there once or twice and seen her. She's huge, was a female. But yeah, like I said, big reptiles have just my life. I've had green anacondas that, I was probably around 15, 16 at the time, but I ordered my first green anaconda right through the mail, came, the way they still do now, but it was like a mail-in order, cash on delivery type thing, green anaconda in a little burlap bag. It wouldn't eat.
Oh.
So I couldn't get the thing to eat. This was the first one. I couldn't get the thing to eat. So I wound up taking it down to Exotic Pet Warehouse in Yonkers. This guy named Louie owned the joint. So I wound up trading that green anaconda. And I'm not saying it's the right thing or the wrong thing. I just assumed he's a pet shop. He could get it to eat. I'm not giving it what it needs.
Yep.
Let me get something for it while I can. So I bring it down there and he trades me an American alligator for it. So I wound up getting an American alligator for the green anaconda. Right hand to God, man. I'm too rude to lie. I will not lie to anybody. So I wind up getting the alligator, raised that bad boy till he was like 6-7 feet. I used to take him everywhere. I had a Jeep Wrangler. I used to throw him in the back seat and he literally just, his tail would hang off one side. His head would rest on the other side of the back seat. People would stop, ask questions, beep the horn. He was so chill. He was so cool. Like you want to talk about a great ambassador animal? Like he was such a cool animal. And damn, yeah. Well, I could go on forever about these animals, dude. My life again is just animals. Like if there's not an animal, there's always been an animal in the picture. Always.
Our viewers are wanting you to go on and on. This man is the main character of a damn sitcom, laughing my butt off. I love it. These are great stories. I've gone small to bigger. I like the little teeny tiny micro geckos, and now we're keeping these gamids and some bigger. They're not super big, but they're bigger than micro. But you want like green. So when you were busy buying your green anaconda, I was looking at the back
first
of the
one. I had
the
6
first ones.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How old are you?
I was looking
40.
in the back of the magazine for sea monkeys, So
sea monkeys?
Yes.
I had them too.
Anacondas.
Do kids even have them these days? Where did I get them from? I know it sounds crazy, but I think we used to get them in like a Cracker Jack box, right? Like you could get the sea monkey. They would come in those little egg things. It would be like those fake eggs that you crack the fake egg open in it, and you get the little sea monkey pack in there. You have to put it in water, and man, the 80s were good. The 80s were
great.
Man,
Bazooka Joe, and you look at if I saved 1,000 of these little comic things, I could get a rubber band. Oh my gosh, good times in the
Oh,
80s.
I-
Baseball cards were more
So
than just a
that's what I-
value, it was the nostalgia, you know, like you could, bust open a baseball card and like really, find your legend and not be like,
Yes.
oh, this is worth so much. It was more the wow, I want to be him someday feeling,
Or collect all the players for your favorite team. And if you got somebody that you didn't like, oh, this guy stinks, I don't like it. So you take one of mom's favorite clothespins and then put the baseball card on your spokes on your bike and do that. Yeah.
Or you convince your little brother that the player is much better than he is and trade him for one of his cards that you really wanted.
Willie Mays will never be a good player.
Yeah.
How did you go down then? How do you go down from a green anaconda and an alligator down to what you're keeping now? And kind of give us a feel for
I
what
mentioned I got married, right? That's how. No, I enjoyed it. When I was a kid, I also had geckos. There wasn't many, but I had tokays. I had tokays as a kid. Loved tokay geckos. How can you deny how beautiful a tokay gecko is in its
in a tank
pure
somewhere else.
form? This is the funny story. I was watching a documentary on TV called Unnatural Selection. It's about CRISPR. It's about CRISPR, gene editing. And in this documentary, they were obviously discussing gene editing, but they had showed a few people doing some at-home experiments where they were, for lack of a better term, playing God. They were making animals that they wanted to make, and pretty much. But they were using frogs in one of these test things, experiments. The guy was using tree frogs, a form of tree frog. And I was literally just watching him, was like, damn, that's kind of cool. So I never bred reptiles. It was never my thing. I always kept them and had them as pets, but I never bred anything. I never was into morphs. I was always into that natural beauty of an animal and respecting and appreciating what it looked like because of the time that it had obviously taken for any particular species to evolve to any particular environment, if that makes sense. When you look at an animal that's been in a particular ecosystem for so long, it evolved to look like that, to be part of that ecosystem for a reason.
Yep.
I find beauty in that. And so I never got into that whole thing. But when the frog thing came up and I was watching the CRISPR thing, and I this light went off and I was like, damn, well, I love reptiles. I love science. I could just make whatever color or kind of frog I want, like even one that glows in the dark. Let me see how this actually works. So I want to buy in a bunch of frogs, and it definitely did not work. But it sparked my interest in keeping multiple smaller animals. If it did anything, that's what it did. It made me realize that I didn't need to have designated rooms, a room for an animal anymore, that I could actually keep a lot of animals in a small, in one room. And it's really how it went. I was working with frogs. I don't want to say breeding, because never, other than a handful, it wasn't as successful as I would like to tell everyone. But again, I'm not going to lie. It was kind of chaotic. Breeding frogs, for anyone that breeds frogs or works with amphibians, kudos to you. Hats off, because it's not easy. You've been into fish also, Wally. Me too. I've kept reef tanks, freshwater, dark water, discus. I've kept any type of ecosystem there is in the world. I've kept all the lakes and all the cichlids. I've kept all the fish, everything from everywhere.
Almost 12.
And heartbreaking too. They left me with nothing in heartbreak. People don't realize how important it is, right? Like if you're feeding live brine, shrimp, or anything, introducing anything, you do not introduce water from anyone else's aquarium system into yours. And when I tell you I paid. And that, when we talk about burnout before we started recording, that killed me. That took me right out of the game, Wally. Took me right out. So
I'll share with you real quick.
Yeah.
We had 125 tanks going downstairs. Most of them were 50s.
They were big.
Quite a few 10s. When our youngest son was born, and I'll make this short, this is your time, but our youngest son was born and he had some health issues, and I was at the hospital for a while with Nanette. But I had purchased some little teeny tiny epistogrammas and busy water change, didn't think about it, and came down after being at the hospital for a day, and all my discus were on their sides, and this tank looks okay, this tank, they're all dead, this tank looks okay, this one's dead. I'm done. And the next weekend I sold everything and the house was cleared of all the tanks. Talk about burnout, like we were before. That was burnout for me. I was in 1 week, I was done.
Funny you say that too. That's exactly what it was that did it to me, was the discus. I had 3 or 4 pairs of breeding pairs of blue diamonds. Now back then, I don't even know if they still have these things, but when I was keeping these, and this was like the mid 90s when this whole spiel happened, these blue diamonds were probably about $350 a piece, let alone a proven breeding pair. Yep. And I mean, you already know. I don't even want to start getting into what that did. That just ended it. I have lost all interest in ever keeping a fish tank. I mean, there's no sign of anything being sick or let alone curing anything. Done in hours. Done. So,
Jen, discus are beautiful and their behavior is amazing.
Gorgeous fish. Gorgeous.
Yeah, they can go down just like that, though. Unfortunately, yeah, love the fish. I have a wall of tanks right here that I had going and just got too busy and realized. And you have to realize, you don't have the resources. Number one being time, and I just shut them down. I give away the fish, and someday maybe I'll bring them back.
I've read studies that actually that claim to. Well, I mean, they put up good arguments, but they prove, for I guess, claim that watching fish in fish tanks is like known to have many health benefits. Mm-hmm. I believe that that's just anything. I think that's joy, right? I think that's joy. I get that same feeling from looking at my geckos in these planted terrariums. I watching snails crawl across the glass and crickets jumping over isopods and little things are sprouting and moss is spreading. And it's, as simple as some may look at it, I get that same feeling and, that serenity, if you will, from staring at these enclosures, It's,
Tell us about what you're keeping right now. Give us a feel. I kind of went over there before, but we started talking about other things.
I'm sorry. I'm always.
No, I'm right there with you.
I can't really tell one thing without telling something else. Like it's all goes together. It's all like
it's one big story.
It's life, right? Life.
Absolutely.
If we're lucky in the end, we'll all have a good book. Right?
There you go.
So right now, I have a pair of bearded dragons and I have some frogs. It was like from a kid. I always loved the frogs, regardless. Who doesn't remember stomping through a mud puddle to catch their first frog, right? So I have a couple of big African bullfrogs. They're chunks. And then I have a pair of bearded dragons, which are just pets. They do breed. I keep them in a 100. You told me what size it was. I thought it was a 125. What did you say it was? Or a 120? That big tank I have that I keep the bearded dragons in.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember what I had for
time, and I was like, it's a 120. I thought it was 120 or 125, and then you had said it was something else. You were like, no, it's a 1 something. But whatever it is, it's a big giant glass plant. I keep 2 bearded dragons, and I know people are against it. Keeping 2 together, cohabiting them, but they've been together their whole lives, like 5 years now. It's a male and a female. They do breed, and when the babies hatch, I give them away. I don't sell them. I'll actually put ads on like Marketplace for families with children that are interested in caring, for an animal. My goal in life is to really get reptiles into kids' hands, people that wouldn't necessarily have the chance. I want to broaden the horizons, if you will, and I don't want that to cost money. So I like to give them away. And they're just pets. So I keep them in this cool, super gnarly, bioactive. I mean, there's no plants because it's hard to keep any plant alive with bearded dragons. They just like taste and touch everything with their mouth, so it doesn't work well. But there's all types of lobster roaches in there. There's a few different types of isopods in there. I literally just dump like maybe 2 quarts of water in there every other week, and it keeps enough moisture in there for them to do anything. I don't pick up any poop. I don't do anything. It's I don't know if you'd call it bioactive, but it is. It's sand and gravel, and there's bugs, and I haven't put a bug in there other than like some crickets or feeders or something in a while. But the mealworms have babies in there. There's mealworms in there. It's like its own little thing, man. And it's, all types of driftwood that I pick up from different random beaches I've traveled to, and different fishing trips. When every time I leave Montauk or something, I'll grab some gnarly stick flowing in the water or something. And they're cool. They're my pets, my bearded dragons. And then I keep I shouldn't say New Caledonian geckos, because I keep quite a few species of geckos, but my heart is genuinely in New Caledonia. I do keep crested geckos, but the morph thing again isn't necessary. This is a controversial or very least.
Bring it on. Because I'm in the same boat as you.
I don't want to say that I'm in the crested geckos for genes or morphs or anything, but I am. I enjoy certain morphs. I enjoy the lily white gene. Like, I love it. I love making these animals that kind of resemble a vision that I have. Like when I look at something and be like, I could do that, or that would be cool if it looked like that. And then I go to the drawing board, right? And I'll find animals that I think would help get me to this goal, and I try to make it happen. But I don't want to go too crazy with it. Like, I'm not out here morph chasing. I'm not spending 10 grand on every time a new gene drops. Like, I let everyone else sort that out. I will sit back here and learn and watch and praise you all, but I'm content with what I have, and I like to see what I can do with what I have. And I kind of look at it from a primitive aspect. Like, when all these animals came into the hobby, say there was 200 of them. There was 200 looking animals, right? And they made all of this out of those 200 animals. So I bought about 100, no, not even, maybe say 50 animals from Anthony Caponetto. I bought some baby hatchling wholesale animals, his high-end, whatever he calls them, animals. And I told myself, well, whatever genes I get in there, I'm going to work with. I'm going to evolve and create my own lines and strands with whatever I can pull out of this assortment of animals I get. And that's what I've been doing for about 6 years with the crested geckos. I did, I'm not going to lie, no lily whites came in there. I did ultimately cave and wind up buying 2 lily whites. They luckily were both males. So I buy everything as a baby. I've never bought an adult animal in probably my life. I love my animals. I raise my animals all as pets. So I want to learn them. I like to learn them the best I can. I like to learn all life phases. Preferences change throughout an animal's life. Habits change throughout an animal's life. I can't truly know my animal unless I've had it its whole life. So I'm super adamant about having everything from birth, really.
I had forgotten that about you, that you like to start off, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, or
me neither.
We do the shows, and somebody will inevitably, every single show, at least one person, maybe more, will say, should I buy a baby or should I buy an adult? It depends on what you want.
Depends on your
but
goals.
Having a baby, you get to see the development and the behavior and the color change.
They learn you too. You know, it's
That's
a lot
right.
less stressful on an animal. Do you know, until recently, and it's really just because I paired a couple of these animals that they lost tails, that of 200 geckos, I didn't have a single animal missing a tail. And I attribute that to me having them from being so young. There's nothing that I do, just like I learn them, they learn me. They learn my sounds, my smells, my habits, my everything I do. They learn everything I do, and I'm not a threat. Therefore, no animal has to lose its tail. Now, after all these years, I want to putting some animals together this year, and freaking 4 of these suckers want to drop in their damn tails.
Oh, no.
I was so happy about that. Like, I got all these animals and nothing's missing a tail. Like, I was like proud of that. But it happens. You know, what are you gonna do?
It happens. It happens. So what I'm hearing you say is Crusties are your favorite New Caledonia
No,
gecko.
not at all. Not even close. Not even close. Not
That
even
was a soft. That was a
not even
softball.
close. My and I hit you with a home run right now. My heart is with Chihuahuas. I cannot speak highly enough about Chihuahuas. And I don't care if you want to talk the mainland game or the Pine Island game. Chihuahuas are incredible animals. I mean, in my opinion, and I own every New Cal species except for some of the I know I'm butchering the name, but Bavayas, whatever, the
Oh, you're
Bavaya.
spot on.
That's right.
Spot on.
Okay, well, I had a guest last week on my podcast, and he pronounced it and suggested I was saying it wrong, which I admitted I was probably right. Or that he was probably right, that I was saying it wrong, but we're not, is what it is. Bavayas. I don't have any Bavayas, and I don't have rough snouts. But other than that, I keep gargoyles, Leachianus, Saracenorums, the Uris, crested, Chihuahuas, mainlands, Pine Islands, just about all New Caledonian species, and I've had every single one of these animals since they were babies, and I do take pride in how I've observed them and watched all of them grow, develop, change, and there's no denying that Chihuahuas would make the best pet. If you're going for a New Caledonian gecko, I would be super confident in saying that a mainland, just because of the price, a mainland Chihuahua is probably the best pet New Caledonian gecko you can get.
Good call.
It's almost unexplainable. If I put one in your hand and gave you one to play with for an hour, you would know why too. And I'm not saying anything about any of the other animals, right? Like, the way I see it is they all have pluses. Every one of them comes with a set of boxes. Yep. And some check boxes that others don't. Chihuahuas, in my opinion, just so happen to check more boxes than everything else does, if that makes any sense.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask you to check the box, the positive box on each one of these different species. And I want you to also check the negative box on each one of these. So let's start with crested geckos. This is not the exercise. We're not even close to that. We'll get to that about 2 a.m. This morning. So let's start with crested geckos. What's your favorite positive and what's your
diversity?
One negative?
Absolutely, very simple, very simple. Diversity. The options. You have more options. If your goal is to make things right, if you find the joy in the art of reptile breeding, right? It's an art form, right? If that's what your objective is, without a doubt, that's your best bet. That's your best bet. You have the biggest palette.
Crested geckos are for the Bob Rosses of the
New Caledonia geckos, for sure. And the biggest negative, Cobb probably sounds pretty ridiculous, but it's the tail thing. They drop their tails and they don't grow them back. That, to me, is a huge negative. And that's because, you would seemingly think that when, nature does nothing by accident, right? Nature is smarter than any of us could ever imagine to be, or any group of us together could ever imagine to be. We will never outsmart nature. Why would you create something that utilizes a limb as much as a crested gecko does, but then doesn't give it the ability to grow back?
Right.
Because you have a crested gecko with a tail and you watch them in an enclosure, they use it a lot. They use it a
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
But they don't grow it back if they lose it. I don't get it.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay. Doesn't make sense. So to me, that's the biggest negative. Gargoyles, the biggest plus positive to gargoyles, I would say the plus,
This isn't gargoyles are
cooler.
tough.
They're cooler than crested geckos. They look cooler than crested geckos.
Yeah,
they do. But in the same hand, the bad part about them is the plus of the cresteds, the lack of the colors on the palette, right? Like there's not as much to work with, but as far as an animal, they're a little bolder, right? They're bolder than a crested gecko. They're not as flighty. They're, the eyes, can you really compete with those blue eyes? I mean, they're cool looking animals, man. They look like little gargoyles, little dinosaurs. Like they're a super cool looking animal. They get a little bigger, there's, I know I'm supposed to give you one plus, but there's quite a few pluses with gargoyles. Just the one big negative is the lack of options.
Yeah.
Sarah, where do you want to go next? You pick.
Let's do Sarah's.
Sarah Sonorums. Sarah Sonorums have been a hot topic lately. Now, I don't exactly see eye to eye with what a lot of people say about Sarah Sonorums. Like everyone that I talk to or read or something to pop up was usually talking about how flighty they are, right? They're super flighty. They're fast. They're hard to tame. They're a look and don't touch species. Go on my Instagram. Tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Excuse me.
Never had one run for me, jump for me, drop a tail. I mean, they're quite possibly the most docile, chill animals in my collection. I'm hard pressed to there's very few boxes that differentiate the Sarahs and the Chihuahuas. I'll say that. I think they are an incredible species. I think that they are super intelligent, super inquisitive. They're active. They I cannot say that I've ever had one jump out of my hand, run away, God knows bite me. There's no bite in them. I could reach in there right now and grab whatever one I want, and they're just going to sit here and look at me like, what do you got for me? They, the only negative with I would say the only negative with them, and it's not even their fault, is the lack of exposure. I genuinely believe that if more people had hands-on experience with them and didn't base their opinions off of the negative stereotypes of the animals, more people would have them. There's some super cool, gnarly, interesting things going on with them. Rob Hannison is working with some. South Tex Gex is working with some super cool things. My boy Richie from the Gecko King has some crazy genetics and genes and phantom eye stuff going on. Mikey over at the Chihuahua Chambers got some line things going on. Like there's some really cool, interesting things happening, but it's a numbers game, right? Not as many people are working with them as they are with all this other stuff. We're not going to see these genes and morphs and traits really come to light with, less people working with them. It's
and once that lily white Sarah Sonorum hits the market, then things. So I agree 100%. So with Sarah's, in my mind, in my simple mind, you have without spots and with spots. There's your two options. Gargoyles, you have, black and white, yellow, orangish, red, not a lot there, but Sarah's are, you either have spots or you don't. So I think that's what's driving maybe some of the demand or lack of demand.
Do you have them? Do you work with them?
I never have, and I have no idea why. No,
when I get some and I produce some, you'd be the first one I send some to. I think you'd be a good advocate if you would be willing to take them. I think you'd be a good advocate if you could raise some. and get your hands on some, I think that you're a good voice. You're a good voice, for the species. You would be a great candidate to spread the word, if you will. And not for nothing, but there's a lot more to it than just spots and no spots. See, it's kind of one of those things that you wouldn't really pay attention to unless you had them, but not all spots are created equal.
Is that this?
It's an interesting thing. It's kind of like the Dalmatian thing with crested geckos, if you will. Super dowels, regular dowels, oil spots, red spots. Not every Sarah is the same. But I guess the gene is the gene, and then maybe again it's not, because there's blondes, the non-spotted ones that produce spotted animals. There's spotted animals that produce the blondes. Still a lot to be learned. There's a lot to be learned. I would strongly encourage anybody that has the opportunity to experience and be privileged or lucky enough to work with them, that you take advantage of that, and then tell me you don't like them after you have them. They're great animals. So back to your question with the boxes, I guess what we have left is, well, the Uris, their negative would just be the size, right? The size, they're super small, really there's a few different species. There's quite a few different species. There's no denying how cool they are. A lot of pluses. If you don't want big, bulky enclosure, you don't necessarily, even though you don't want something that you have to hold they mark a lot of boxes for certain types of people. They are probably the perfect New Caledonian gecko, right? Like if you want a terrarium on your enclosure, that's where I got mine.
Our friend Steph from Green Acres Exotics with her
absolutely
Europlatus.
She sent me my first one, and I used to dream of having one, and I always, it's not a financial thing with me. It wasn't money that kept me from buying one or not buying one. It was just, I guess I got in my own way. I got in my own head about having them. And then when I wound up winning on the 12 Days of Christmas, Supreme 12 Days of Christmas, I wound up winning the gift from Steph, which, I had options. I could pick a Chihuahua, a Garg, a crested gecko, or the Uri. I had to go with the Uri. And was hardly a money thing. It wasn't the most expensive option by any means. It had nothing to do with it. I looked at that as a sign and an opportunity to work with a species that I never have, and I didn't have. It was a good opportunity, and I took it as a sign and I ran with it. And I'm glad that it happened, because I love that little girl. She's one of the coolest geckos in my collection. And they're a great species. I would just say their only negative to them is their size. I wouldn't be comfortable taking her and putting her in a child's hand. I wouldn't be comfortable. There's just a lot of things. I'm not so sure I'd be so comfortable with leaving her on my shoulder while I did chores around my room. I'd be too afraid that something happened. I would just get nervous.
Our granddaughter certainly would. Our granddaughter is known for walking around a whole show with a viper gecko on her shoulder. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just realized you said Uri's, and I was thinking Europlatus. I jumped a whole continent over on you. Sorry about that.
Well, that's where I got it from. I thought you were saying Green Acres. That's where I got it.
Yes.
Yeah, Steph from Green Acres.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant right there.
That's what you meant.
You're talking about Urodactyloides, though. Did you get Agricoli?
Yes.
Yep. Very cool.
Cool. That's what you got. See, I'm still they're still super new to me, so I'm still trying to figure out all the things. And Steph's been coaching me through it and teaching me what the differences are and sending me charts and diagrams with different scalations and whatnot. But if you put them all in front of me, I still couldn't tell you what was what. But I do have the Agricola. I don't know what the difference is, but she's cool. She's cool. And if you showed me a picture of all of them, she's kind of darker, and that would be the one I picked. She's like, well, she can be dark, but super small too. You've seen babies, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't work with tiny little geckos, but what the hell is smaller than that? This thing was this big.
I'm going to tell you what's smaller than that.
Yeah.
I have, and sorry to veer off here, but I have some Tropiocalatus that the adults are the size of a baby Urodactyloides. The adults are the size of a baby Urodactyloides. The baby Tropicolatus are a month old now. I have 3 of them, and I just put in fruit flies for the first time in a month, and the fruit flies are still too big for the babies. The small,
so small.
the Madagascar, can't talk tonight. The Madagascar fruit flies are still too big for these little teeny tiny babies.
Wow.
Right? So we've been feeding them
Is it
springtails.
springtails? That's what you're feeding the springtails.
So there's a lot of weird
That's amazing.
crap out there.
That
Yeah.
really is. That's in my mind. That's amazing.
It's crazy.
I've got to do a video on these animals. They're super cool,
Imagine
but they're
that.
so
See?
small.
Imagine that. Something you got to feed a springtail to. Holy cow.
Okay, I'm going to make you go back to
Wow.
lychees. I want a positive and a negative on lychees.
The positive, I mean, they also have a lot of positives. You know, there's they're not necessarily like, I mean, a lot of people are doing some interesting things with colors and whatnot, but I'd say that the emphasis is more on localities. You know, like it's you know, locality. They're a locality type of thing, not a morph or a trait type of thing, even though there is morphs and traits and genes and stuff that people are working with. But me personally, my interest is in the localities of those animals. The only negative side with, well, I don't want to say the only negative side. They can, and mine aren't, but they can be aggressive. So if we're talking pets, right? Like pet is our topic here, you know, what crosses the box and doesn't check boxes as far as pet animals. They can be a little aggressive, and if you pair them, they change temperaments and personalities. You know, they get a little you know, territorial and stuff like that. I just don't know that they would make the best pet for everyone, right? Like, but they're great animals. They're great animals. Pluses, I mean, the size of them. I mean, it's the biggest gecko in the world. You know, some of my GTAs, like they're huge animals. They're awesome. Like they're awesome. But I don't even know what else to say. There's very few words that describe how damn cool a freaking giant Leachianus is. You know, the sounds they make. You know, I have this one girl, and she just talks to me. And every time I take her out of the cage, she's super vocal, squonking and squeaking, and not aggressive whatsoever. She has different sounds for different things, which I learned from having her since she was this big, and now she's this big. It's, you know, I've learned her, and she's learned me, and she's like 4 years old now.
Wow.
And
Perfect age.
Again, just she's just, they're all my pets. You know, I have, not to veer off, but I have all these animals, 200 animals. Every day I hold 200 animals. Every day, 200 geckos touch my hands. Every day. Every single day. Every single day. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone does that, you know, or should do that or needs to do that. But that's, again, my happy place. That's what brings me joy. When I get to go through my room and I come in, and I do this half and half, some in the morning before I go to work and the other half when I get home from work. So I split it into 2 sections. I look at, well, I don't probably less, because I don't hold the cave geckos. I don't hold the Madagascar species, and I don't hold my knobtail, the knobtails, the Nephurus.
Yep.
But all my New Caledonian geckos I hold every day. And that's just because if I didn't hatch them myself, I raised them. And and I know people are going to look at me like I'm some type of weirdo, but I have relationships with them. When I come in this room, they come to the glass. Every animal in here comes to the glass when I walk in this room. Everybody wants to see what I'm doing, who's getting fed, what's happening, and I can't simply walk by. I use water dishes. I have to check water dishes. So while I'm changing a water dish, my sink is 15 feet away. Whatever gecko's in the enclosure comes with me in the water dish as I change it, and we go back, and it's not a long time, but then you go back in the cage. I grab the next dish and the next gecko, and we go to the sink, and then we go back and forth, and it's what I do. It's what brings me joy. It's how I decompress from my day. It's what I do, you know,
we all need something like that. I remember, talking fish again, just real quick. We used to have a tank of Tropheus duboisi, the black and white ones, black, white stripe. The algae eaters,
Okay.
about that big, Tropheus duboisi, black and white, and we had a group of probably 12, and just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When our oldest son was born, he had a little bit of a problem falling asleep. He had colic, a little bit of a problem falling asleep. So I'd walk downstairs. Okay, Nanette, I'll help, tonight. So I'd take him and hold him tight, walk him down to that tank, black and white. And he would sit, and I could see his eyes, just teeny tiny little bit, and just fascinated. And all of a sudden, I'm watching him too. And it's like, life is good. Here I am with my son, just enjoying fish. This is what it's meant to be. So absolutely. I think we all have to find that happy place in keeping animals, and
I hope people too. I would preach to everyone that if you could do anything in this life, find what truly makes you happy, man. Find what really makes you happy. You can never give your all to anyone as a friend, a parent, a brother, any type of loved one if you're not really, really happy with yourself, man, right? You have to be happy. You have to, life's not always peaches and cream. Again, everything's not going to be easy. Things aren't always going to go the way we want them to, but you have to at least know what makes you happy, right? Like when all hell breaks loose, and it does in my life every day I walk through hell for a couple minutes, but I know where my happy place is, and I guess it's kind of a dependency thing too. Like I know that they need me in a selfish way. I know that they need me. So the option to stop caring for them never comes up. Like, you're my responsibility. I put your parents together and made you born. How the hell could I deny you water? Like it's just not an option.
Anthony's happy place. Well, having said that, I'm going to take you away from your happy place. Viewers, it's time to wind Andy. I'm going to call this segment Wind Anthony Up. I went to the pet store today because we needed some crickets. So I bought about 50 crickets, and I've got 2 or 3 cages with geckos, and I have to feed. So I went to the pet store and I got 50 crickets. I just dumped the 50 crickets. So what is that? Like, 22, 23 in each one. Is that okay?
3 containers?
I have 3 enclosures of geckos.
And you put 23 in each one?
Is that about right? 20, 40?
Well, I know you did a little bit more.
17.
You do math like the kids at school.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get my calculator. Okay, so 50, and I put 17 or whatever in each one. Is that okay? I mean, they came right from the pet store.
I don't believe you, right?
Nobody believes that.
Let's wind them up. Here we go.
Listen, anyone that knows me knows, man. I spend as much time as I do with these animals as I do with these bugs. Not only do I believe in a good, solid, sound gut load or food like Supreme Geckos, Supreme Geckos chow, I believe personally in raising my own feeders because I want to know what goes in my feeders from day one. Like this is, I hatch my own crickets, so I can satisfy myself knowing what's in these things, right? Like I that's how much I believe in a good gut load. From what I understand and what I've read, I believe crickets metabolize a meal in 48 to 72 hours. So should you have to go and buy them, it's fine. We've all been there, buy them, but make sure you feed them something that you would in theory want in your animal, right? Like, and wait the 48 to 72 hours and hydrate them and just be super conscious of what you're putting into your reptile. Like, you're literally putting what's in this feeder's stomach into your animal. Make it count.
Is it okay to use that Flukers with calcium gel? Would that be okay? Man, I hope I'm getting used
it. I've never used it, and I don't know what's in it. I don't.
You're
no,
pushing buttons.
I don't know. Is it? You tell me. I would use Supreme Gecko feeder chow over that, but I don't think that what could it possibly? I mean, what type of nutrition could really be in a clear jelly cube? I
Polycarbonated. I don't even know what that.
really,
Those
because it
things
looks
are.
just like square water crystals that were with color in them, if you ask me. But I believe in feeding, or I know you don't have to, but I feed organic for pesticide purposes. But I don't know that it's necessarily wrong. If you're feeding them greens, I guess go ahead. Again, like I said, I use the organic stuff just because I'm like super weirded out with pesticides, and being that crickets are probably something they're spraying pesticides for. I just wouldn't want to lose, again, crickets that I raise. As weird as it sounds, the crickets are my responsibility and pets too. Like, yes,
Yeah,
I'm going to feed you to something, but
Yep.
I'm cultivating you. Like, I need you to be healthy and at your best, right? So I don't just give them trash. I feed a lot of squash. I love carrots. I have a garden in the summertime, so I quite literally like grow vegetables for my animals. It's weird, but I enjoy gardening. I love snowflowers. I like planting things. I like squash, zucchini, butternuts,
Pumpkins. I love Halloween for pumpkins, for the
absolutely.
isopods. but
You'd be
also for-
surprised how many of my feeders actually eat pumpkins, and they're great too because after a lot of the other stuff is gone, I usually still got a couple pumpkins out in the garden, so it's it works. Things eat them. I mean, people eat pumpkin too, right? So why the hell not? I always thought I was weird for feeding pumpkin, but stuff eats them.
Good stuff. Cecilia has a good comment here. Crickets from the pet store always seem like they are starving. They attack the food dish once they get into the cricket enclosure. So I 100% agree with that. I really think that whatever, and we've talked a little bit about this, Anthony. I really, really, really feel strongly about this. Concentrating on food is one of the big differences between a good breeder and a really, really good breeder. And I'm not trying to say that, egotistical or anything. It's just as you go through this breeding process, you start realizing the food that you're putting in there is the one of the biggest control factors that you have over these animals' lives. So why would you feed a starving, unhydrated feeder insect to your animals? It's just like, me eating chocolate chip cookies. Well, I guess that's not a good analysis.
Raising your children on gas station food.
There you go.
No normal parent is going to take your child to the gas station for dinner every night, right?
Every single day. Yes. So, gut loading and supplementation, huge points. Absolutely.
Yeah, I supplement my feeders just because I feel like it's an easy pathway to my animals. Like sometimes I've experienced when I do give particular mixes. I mean, I'm notorious for feeding a super bug heavy diet to all my animals. But when I do feed mixes, and it's I use a lot of Repashy, but I've added liquid calcium. I've over the years I've added little things, and sometimes I find that it obviously has to change the flavor because it doesn't get as good of a feeding response from some of my animals. Like when I'll add a calcium or a something to it, they don't like it. So I've found it easier to get the micros and macros into my animals through the feeders. So if I can put extra calcium and vitamins and all the stuff in my feeders food, they don't discriminate. They eat everything. If I can get it into them, then it's easier to get it into my lizards.
Yes. And the problem you're having though is you're feeding this silly supreme feeder food. What you really should be feeding is what Juan is feeding. I feed my crickets tacos and tequila, so my geckos are happy as I am. So we're doing it wrong. Thank you, Juan, for setting us on the right course there. I appreciate that.
Apparently.
Hey, Anthony, tell us, in your opinion, one really good thing that's going on in the hobby today, something that we've seen change in the last few months and last year or so, something that's happening that's a good thing tell us one other thing that you would like to see improve, maybe something that's not going so well in the hobby that you'd like to see some change to.
I don't pay attention to the negative stuff, so I'm not going to really be able to talk too much on that. I've kind of just eliminated that from my scope. So all I do is see positive and potential for positive, and I don't want to sound like some like happy tree hugging, like nothing's wrong in the world hippie, because I'm not. But I believe that there's a lot more communicating going on. There's a lot more sharing going on. I see tons of podcasts. I see tons of people not just sharing pictures, but explanations of pictures. People are doing a lot less gatekeeping. Sharing their bad experiences. Now, depending on your perception, you can view that in one of two ways. You can view that as me looking at negative things and being happy at someone's downfall. Then I would suggest you have some serious issues. Or you could look at that as people sharing their negative experiences to help you prevent them yourself, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
People are doing a lot less lying and hiding of negative things and being a little more open, which is ultimately helping people, right? So I think that's a huge plus. I think we're a little behind with technology because, as easy as it is for us to be open and honest via the internet and all of these other pathways, your podcast, your YouTube channels, your everything, to share information, we should collectively be avoiding these common issues a lot more, right? Like we're a family, we're a unit, right? Like as a reptile hobby, we are one. I don't care if you're purple, you're pink, you're black, Chinese. We're all in this. This is what brings us together, not any of that other crap, right? This is the reason we're together. So this is what matters. All that other stuff is just other stuff we all have, right? So if we're all our interest and our common goal and our common objectives and passion are these animals, and that's what we're keeping our conversations to, we can do nothing but grow, right? In theory, we should all be growing, even like I said, from negative experiences. Your negative experience is ultimately a lesson to me, which is a positive, right? Like it's we're all learning from each other in one way, shape, or form or another. It's a good thing, right? Like I've said this often, but there's no reason that the reptile hobby shouldn't be as big as the cat and dog hobby is,
Right.
It's a lot less taboo than it was when we were younger. It's a lot less, it's a lot more, socially acceptable. I mean, when I'm a carpenter, when I go to people's homes and stuff, and they ask me questions, usually everything I say is something to do with animals, and usually always comes up that I work with all these lizards, and I've never to this day had anyone say ooh or gross. Everyone's super interested. I actually it hasn't fully happened, but I have 2 customers of my companies that are super interested in actually getting geckos. Like I've inspired 2 people that are in like the corporate world that have nothing to do with reptiles, never been to a reptile show, a shop, a pet shop, no cats, no dogs, totally game for having a mini jungle in their house with this cool looking lizard in it.
I think that's fantastic. I don't have the exposure like you do with working with people. I was stuck in an office for 40 some years and talking to a small number of people. But we have people coming in to look at our electric, look at our gas, whatever. And I kind of warn them before they go downstairs, you're going to see a lot of stuff down here. So just forewarn. And they get down there. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Right. You feel and you keep and you hand. So then, 4 hours later, they're finally getting to what they were supposed to do.
And your bill is that much more.
And our bill is, $14,000.
And that's knowledge, right? Like you have just exposed someone to something they've never seen or heard before. You just didn't, you made an impression on someone's life for the rest of their life. Whether they keep a reptile or they don't, they're never going to forget the time they walked into the basement and the guy had 2,000 geckos. They're never going to forget that.
He couldn't wait to get home to talk to his wife. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what this guy had done.
That's awesome.
And I 100% agree with you that, you know, transparency is so important in this world. It is to me. It is to me because I feel like if I messed up with something, I want to be the very first person to share that so that you don't have the same experience. Hey, if you're keeping your heat tape over, you know, a plywood and you're moving your tanks in and off and you're scratching that, be warned, because see, this can happen to you.
You are unique, though, Wally. You are unique. You are a paragon. There's no denying it. You are a paragon. And I use your name all the time. I mean, in the podcast, everything, I'll always refer to how you do things. You are an incredible educator. You are an amazing teacher. You have a gift for, you never say, you don't tell people. You don't, and I don't know if that makes sense, but what some people are naturally, I don't know what causes it, but when people get delivered information in certain ways, they don't receive it well. Right? You have a gift for giving information that may offend some people, right? Like someone may be doing something wrong. Someone might be doing something wrong, but you propose an option for them, right? You're not telling them. You give them an option that makes them think. And you can't be mad at yourself for doing what you do. You're the one doing it, buddy, right? But you just gave him an option to do it a different way. He knows his failures. He knows his flaws. He knows what's really happening. He may not be telling us, but you just gave him an option to do it better, to do it differently. And he learned. You got through the wall. You have a gift for knocking down those walls. And I've seen this from the first video of yours I've watched probably 7 years ago, maybe longer. I'm like, I can learn from this. He talks in a way in which I can learn. I'm learning. And I always tell people, man, if you ever want to just learn, if you want to just learn something, check out Supreme Geckos, man. You know, whether it's a species you're interested or not, or it's just conversation, just listen to the man. Listen to the man. Hear your options. You will learn. There's not a chance in hell you're going to watch any Supreme Geckos video and not learn something. You'll at least walk away asking yourself questions about what you're doing. And I admire you for that. Again, when I think of what I want the hobby to be, and I'm often asked, what do you envision the hobby being? Say a whole bunch of Wallies, whole bunch of Wally Kerns, whole bunch
help us.
Whole bunch of Supreme Geckos. If everyone that kept an animal ran and operated their operation the way Wally runs Supreme Geckos, you tell me how this hobby would be. Tell me how this hobby would be.
Nanette is begging to differ on your point about a whole lot of Wallies. I appreciate that. I really do.
Kidding.
All I feel like I'm doing is sharing passion, and all I feel like sometimes I'm doing is sharing the don't make this mistake. And I can do that well because I've made so many flipping mistakes. I have a plethora of mistakes that I can share on these kind of videos.
You've made, for every mistake you've made, and every time you've done a podcast about it, you've at very least, and I'm being modest, at very least I would say you spared 100 people from making the same mistake, right?
That's super.
Look how many
cool
views your videos get, how big your following is. You've at least spared 100 people from potentially making the same mistake you did. I know how many times I've watched your video and be like, damn, okay, whoa, thank God I didn't do that. Or whoa, glad I'm doing this.
Wally sure is a dumbass, but at least he helped me not make this mistake. Thank you, Wally. So you're talking about the Supreme Gecko videos, and I greatly appreciate that. But one thing that I will say over and over and over and over again about you is, you know, you're positive, just like we found out there about, you know, let's ignore the negatives. And that's a great mindset. So you're very positive. The other thing about you is that you're a sponge. You are a human sponge. tell our viewers, because there's a lot of ways that you can do research on animals. You can go to Facebook, you can ask friends, you can go to the pet store, you could go get books. What is your go-to method of, oh, you're going to get a Urodactyloides in? I don't know. Anthony doesn't know anything about Urodactyloides. Where does Anthony start? And what's your favorite method of researching animals?
Definitely unique in this aspect because I don't typically ask anyone first. The first thing, the only thing I'll usually ask would be, where does the animal come from? And then I will, through many different methods, I will study the region and land in which that animal comes from. See, in my eyes, if I can learn the land, the geographical location and makeup of this animal's range, I'll understand the animal better than anybody's going to tell me, it's hard to explain, right? Because everybody has their own microclimate, right? Like all of our houses, whether we're doing it right or wrong, and our animals are thriving or they're not, every one of us lives in a different part of the country. Every one of us has a different setup. Some have living rooms where they keep their animals. Some are basements. Some have their own designated rooms. It's all different. It's all different. So you can't truly ask any one person what they're doing for success, because if you're not going to 100% replicate their whole setup, what good is it really, right? But if nature is our proxy, if nature is what we compare everything to, we can all ultimately get to the same spot, right? Because what we're trying to do is replicate nature for our animals, not Billy Joe or Mike and Timmy down the street. Like, who knows what they got going on, right? Like, they should also be trying to replicate the natural environment. I don't even mean like full bio type thing, which I'm obviously for, but temperatures, foods, light cycles, nature should be our proxy. Nature should be our gauge for whatever animal we're keeping, that animal's natural range. These animals over millions of years evolved to live in these unique, specific ecosystems, right? We're not just going to take them, throw them in a box and say, oh, nope, there's 2 generations captivity now. They're totally captive. I don't got to do any of that. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, right? Like, we need to replicate the animal's natural environment for true success, and whether it's just temperature, humidity, basic things, those are very important things. Lots of these animals, they don't see the world we do the way we do. They don't feel the world the way we do. Light cycles, temperatures, air humidity, those things are how these animals live, engage their actions, I guess you will. Like, their whole life cycles are basically scheduled around, the solar stuff, stars, and what's the word I'm looking for?
The cycle. Somebody help us in the view.
What the hell's the name of it? But there's a name. There's a name for it. Every time that the planets move and all this stuff. I mean, this is really what ultimately gauges, what season it is to an animal. They don't have calendars. They don't have clocks. It's all movement of the earth. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. It's true. And the only things that we can see that they can, I guess, are like temperatures and humidities and things of that nature, and again, it's the way I learn an animal is I study the animal's natural range. I study the seasons, if there is seasons. Lots of times there's not a cold season. Sometimes it's a wet season. Sometimes it's a dry season. Doesn't necessarily mean temperature changes at all. It may just be humidity and rain and it's different for just about every species, unless they come from like the same region naturally. But you know, everyone, you could talk to someone that lives down the street, like I said, that has 15 animals all in the same room. It doesn't mean that he's right or wrong for that matter. It's just, I feel people would do a lot better if they did some research on where their animals come from. Read, study. I don't want to say don't listen to anybody, but be cautious of what you take as fact, right? I guess hear everybody out, but you have to think for yourself and not just assume that everybody is just right? Like
Yep.
you have to take in what you hear, your observations, because me watching my animals teaches me just about everything too, you know. Funny story, but the reason I got so many New Caledonian species was because I wanted to watch how they acted, right? I wanted to study the difference in behaviors and what they did, with the anticipation of learning how every species coexisted in the same forest, if you will. You know, I wanted to see like what did what different. So if these guys are doing this, they're probably at the lower end of the forest. Gargoyles are probably doing this, so they're lizard eaters, so they're probably around this level, catching hatchlings as they're running up the trees. Like, if you ever notice, gargoyles are always facing down something. Crested geckos are always the opposite way, looking up on a branch, right? Like, it's just there's little things that I've observed from keeping every species from New Caledonia. And I mean, I wish I could go there. Like, it's a dream of mine. You know, I wish I could go to New Caledonia and study the forest, you know. But I think that, again, not to keep beating a dead horse here, but an animal's natural environment, despite how long a species has been in captivity, an animal's natural environment will teach us more than any person we're going to talk to, you know?
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I'm a big believer, and I'm going to say this in accordance to what you just said, but it's going to sound very, very different. I'm a big believer, and our viewers are going to repeat word for word what I'm going to say here. Go to 3 people and ask them what their opinion is. Hey, how do you breed Urodactyloides agricolae? Get the information, but don't treat any one of them as this is, you know, written in stone, Moses on the mountaintop. Collect, because, and I'll tell you why, because Joe Hupp might do it one way and Richie might do it another way. Well, why? Why is it different? Oh, you know why? Because Joe lives here in St. Louis and Richie, so their climate, their environment, their houses are in the wintertime. Joe's house is bone dry. I know because I'm in Wisconsin and my house is. So everybody is different, but you might get that same answer. But to your point, you got to think and you've got to observe you have to observe your animals and understand what they're going through. I'm going to throw in one more point real quick, and I'm going to go to our last question here. Years and years ago, I was asking a great hobbyist, Ryan McVeigh, about some animals, and I cannot remember the animals, but I said, I'm doing this, I just cannot get them to breed. Well, Wally, the problem is that you've got to remember, and this isn't in any books or anybody's doing this, but you have to remember where they come from. They come from right on the coast, and the winds blow in, and it gets really cold at night, and so you're not dropping the temperatures enough at night. It's like, oh, and he goes, and you're probably not giving a lot of ventilation and a lot of wind. So you got the temps good during the day, but remember, there's all kinds of other factors too, especially with animals that are in very, microclimates like the animals that you're working with. I was like,
the first thing he said to you, where they come from, right? Where they come from.
Yes. But you can't just go to the internet and look up their location and find out water rainfall and temperatures.
You got to do some digging. If it was that easy, I mean, everybody, we would, I mean, I go as crazy as like substrate content. I use limestone in my substrate just because I found out that lots of the New Caledonian islands are limestone based. There's I guess 2 of the insular islands are volcanic, but the substrates of the islands that make up New Caledonia are different, you know? So in my eyes, with my Chihuahuas at least, where they are notorious for having calcium issues, I went right to the substrate. I'm like, well, everything they're eating is ultimately coming from the dirt. In one way, shape, or form, it stems from the dirt. So if these micros and macros, that the prey of the prey of the prey is eating a higher calcium diet, then this is how these animals are getting this extra calcium. Like it all, you have to think of the whole process, literally from the ground up. And you can only do that when you think of the animal's actual natural range. It's
I love that thought. I love that thought about digging and then digging the next step and then keep digging and keeping that open mind as long as you have the animals, as long as you're working with them. I'm going to jump right to I've taken a lot of your time here. We could talk for 36 hours. Frank the Tank is saying,
I know I have no problem. I apologize. For once. I feel so bad. I'm just like rambling. I must look like a complete nut job, but I promise you guys, I'm not that loopy. I'm not that crazy. I just love my animals and I'll stop at nothing to give them the best.
You have great stories and we greatly appreciate that.
You don't know what happened to them.
Here's my last question, and then I guess I have two questions. The last one is going to be more information about yourself and what you're doing. But here's my question for you: is we had Jason on Gecko Exchange podcast a few weeks ago, and he really laid it out and said some bad things about you. I was kind of embarrassed by what he was saying. So now's your chance to get back at him. Is there anything that you would like to say to Jason? I don't know if
you're talking to Mr. Positive.
The kid's brilliant. There's nothing to say about it. I promise you. I talk to a lot of people, and when I approached him about doing the podcast, it's for a reason, right? Like I asked Jason to do the podcast with me because Jason is Jason, right? Yes. He thinks outside of the box, right? Like to deal with me, you have to, right? You have to think outside of the box. I won't settle for basic standard or I can't. I often repeat the old notorious cliches saying that at one point in time, the light bulb was impossible, right? The telephone was a joke. Right? These things were never going to happen, let alone man walking on the moon. So I don't believe that life is two-dimensional. It's not. It's not black and white. And Jason views things the same way. He has different interests. God bless him. God bless him. He loves animals the same way I do. He researches his animals the same way that I do. I learn from him all the time too. He drops these little jewels that spark interests in my mind that ultimately lead to me researching something or doing something. I mean, he's brilliant with the Latin. God, you guys could tell I could barely speak English, let alone Latin. Jason knows just about all 2,000 species of geckos' Latin names. He's super organized. He's the real structure behind the podcast because I script nothing. I don't write anything down. I come into a podcast with no questions in my head. I couldn't tell you what I'm going to ask until the one turns to live by, hey, here we go. I don't, but Jason keeps me in line with that stuff because I'll just talk,
You two, and I've said this before, you two are the perfect complement to each other. Mm-hmm. So Jason has everything on, and Jason and I go back and forth.
That's all him. That's all Jason.
Oh, did you put a colon behind that? And did you? So we're all techie stuff.
Yeah, he
so
is.
I look at you two.
Scheduling. That's Jason.
That's Jason. Mm-hmm. But you say that he's. I'm going to say it a little bit different. Jason, like myself, is AC/DC's Back in Black and white. You are the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with all the colors. So Jason is facts and figures, and he knows the names. That's not saying that he doesn't go outside the box. What that's saying is that he's that straight line, forward first, and you're all over and great stories and everything, but you guys blend and mesh so flippin' perfectly. It's a pleasure to listen to your podcast. Really, absolutely.
Because he's definitely brilliant. He's definitely, again, like I said, I don't want to sound smug because please, I'm not by any means. But I had a lot of options. When it came to this podcast, I could have asked a lot of people. There was never a doubt, and honestly, there was never anyone else I thought of asking other than Jason. And it's ironic because we really
didn't ask me
by having similar questions. Like we would question similar topics, and that's how we would see somebody would post something, and me and him would both, hypothetically scratch our chins and ponder the same thing. And we usually never actually came to the same conclusion.
That's
but
good.
It was the topic and the thought that we, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like that yin and yang type thing, we equal each other out with different thoughts and ideas that ultimately have the same goal, I guess. And again, I wouldn't ask anyone else. It never even dawned on me to ask anyone else. And never, I said, this is the kid. This is who I'm going to do this with. This is going to be the guy that helps put this thing together, that gets all these people this information. Because that's ultimately what our goal is to put together a collection of information for people to eternally reference, and
yes.
Give people options. We want to just add options for people when it comes to care and information to bettering the lives of their animals,
Yeah, right there with you, man.
Brilliant. We don't like, we don't have to, but we like different species of geckos and different things, but that's the beauty of it. I learn from him all the time about stuff he keeps, and he can ask me questions about, stuff that I keep. And it's almost like we have dual collections. He could ask me for anything I got. I send it to the kid in the heartbeat. You want it, take it, man. I don't care. It's yours.
You two just blend so well. Frank has shared the two links that we have in the videos, in this live's videos description. I've got your links. I'm going to throw this question up real quick. Do you have a dream lizard you'd love to add to your collection? Let's say you won hey, Anthony, you just won the lottery. You won $1 bazillion. What animal are you going out to get?
See, I've been asked this question, and it changes, It changes. Right now, if you ask me, I'd say a river otter. I'd go get a giant river otter.
How cool.
But if it had to be a lizard, I'd probably get like a Bell's phase, a Bell's phase, like a lace monitor, a Bell's phase lace monitor.
Oh,
I've
that
never
would be
had
Juan's
one,
favorite, yeah.
But I've had some big monitors. I've had Niles, I've had black throats, white throats, and they're cool, they're smart. But you got to keep in mind that no matter the money, you have to invest that time, right? So
yeah,
knowing that has me questioning what animal I'd actually get, just because it's I had Nanette. I had goats. I had Nigerian pygmy goats.
I want the little one.
Questions for Nanette. I did. I had two of them. One named Jack Daniels and one was Johnny Walker. Now
standing.
I was working at a house up near a farm, and I drove by. I was going to work in the morning with my buddy Lucas. There was a sign outside like goats for sale, $50. I grabbed him like, yo, good, we get goats for $50, man, a freaking goat. He was like, we're not. He's Polish, had a heavy Polish accent. He's like, I'm not getting no damn goats, blah, blah, blah. I tell you what, on the way home, I had two goats, Johnny Walker and Jack Daniels. I tell you, they were awesome.
I'd order a Highland cow, and I'd be really happy.
They were cool.
Okay, enough of this goat talk.
But now you got me thinking, a dream lizard. If I could buy any lizard in the world, what would I buy? I'd probably find someone that had a better idea of what they wanted and buy them their dream lizard.
Oh my God.
I don't know that I would, I would rather just get someone into the hobby, man. I'm not like, not to sound smug, but money don't mean nothing to me. If I wanted, I'd have it now. I don't I'd buy someone else their dream. I don't know.
I'm going to put my dream gecko in the chat here just for, prosperity, for future reference, just in case you do win the bazillion dollars.
I'll buy it for you. Absolutely. Why not?
Again, long session here. Thank you very much, Anthony. Tell us, though, before we leave, the Gecko Exchange podcast and the, I'm going to say it wrong, the New Cal
Corner.
Yes.
New Cal Corner is the new spinoff. We've turned the Gecko Exchange into the Gecko Exchange podcast, to the Gecko Exchange network, and we're doing some things. I can't really spill the beans because Jason will friggin' kill me. But we got some things in the action. New Cal Corner is just ironically the first one that's been, revealed. We're New Cal Corner. If you know, Gecko Exchange podcast is we like to cover all the species of the world, all the people working with these geckos and gecko species from every continent. New Cal Corner being that they're such a popular species, and we felt that there was a need for good information, and we needed a platform to have some underappreciated, less appreciated people have a platform to share their experiences. We felt that it was pretty important to get that unrolled first. So New Cal Corner is for nothing but New Cal specific species and breeders, and anyone working with anything New Cal. If you feel that you have something to share, we'll get you on a stage, man. I say it on every podcast, but the little girl with one leopard gecko is absolutely just as important as the big breeder with 5,000 geckos. Everyone that keeps a gecko makes up this hobby. Ain't no one person that's a community within themselves. We all are. Everyone is. And everyone has a voice. So that's what we're doing over there. You can find me on my page is Cold Blooded Gems on IG. I also run the New Cal Corner Instagram page. Jason takes care of the Gecko Exchange page, but we all have access to all of them, so we're all like on there. And Ghouls and Geckos is the other page. So Ghouls and Geckos, Cold Blooded Gems, the Gecko Exchange podcast IG channel, and the New Cal Corner IG channel are all of our thing there. Find one, you'll find them all. We're on.
Find them all, and they're all great. And you guys do a great job with the podcast. I have Instagram sitting right here, ready to open to talk about we didn't need pictures. We didn't need Instagram to do this live stream tonight. You're a great storyteller. Loved having you on. There's no way that we can't have you on again in the near future and get a little bit more into some of the details of your animals and how you care for your animals.
I want to get you on the New Cal Corner, Wally. I'm dying to get you on there. I know how busy you are, and I definitely got to get you on there. I mean,
anytime, let me know.
No, you pick the species, you pick the topic. I want you to teach. I just want you to just teach.
I'll do Sarah's.
No.
Spitting.
I could talk about gargoyles. That'd probably
That'd be awesome. That'd
Cool.
be awesome.
Cool.
Be cool.
Anthony,
thank you so much, Nanette. God bless your soul for dealing with this, man. Wally, you know what I think of you. You know what I think of you.
And remember, folks, we need more Wallies in this world.
Facts. Everyone should strive to be as humble, polite.
We need more Anthony's and Jason. You guys are great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Wally.
Good night.